A group might be reluctant because they're tired. They might be overworked, overcommitted. They were voluntold to be there. There are all sorts of reasons that group reluctance or resistance might show up. In this video, I'm gonna show you how to deal with a reluctant audience by sharing 4 key tips and ideas that I use as a professional facilitator, speaker, educator, when I get a reluctant audience sitting in front of me, whether it's remote or in person. I'm Chad Littlefield. Let's get into it. The first step I'm going to share is going to help overcome 80% of audience reluctance pretty much right away. The second is a subtle but powerful perspective shift that I have seen turn a culture of reluctance 180 degrees completely in the other direction. Next one is a dumb, simple, practical, simple tool that nobody uses. It's like the lowest hanging fruit. It's not even low hanging fruit. It's like fruit on the ground. All you have to do is pick it up. It's so easy and yet makes a really massive difference. And then the last one is like your escape hatch. When all else fails, you got a reluctant audience, here's what you do next. Number 1, if you're subscribed to the channel you've been watching for any period of time, you know that me and my co-founder Will are really big on being clear about your intention. And so the first tool is state your intent. Our intentions influence impact, but they do not control it, right? So you can have the best of intentions that are other-centric, that are stretched to include the needs of the whole, but people still get a choice and have a little bit of free will over what they do, how they are, who they choose to be in a given moment. My wife and I have some friends and also mentors to us that also happen to be couples counselors, couples psychologists. And they're psychologists independently, but they do couple counseling together. And Jeff and Janet, 2 lovely human beings on the planet. And one of the things that Jeff said to us, Kate and I were sitting on the same side eating breakfast in a booth, and Jeff was sitting on the other side. And one of the things he invited us to do is if we were ever having a really tough conversation, to actually get up and sit on the same side. So if I'm sitting in a chair, she's sitting in a couch, get up and both sit on the couch as a physical representation that we're aiming toward the same thing overall. And that is what stating your intention can do for a reluctant audience. Reluctance is saying, I don't want to go where you want to go. But the problem is, it may not have been stated exactly what the intention is. And when intentions are unclear, manipulation has a way of just kind of creeping in a little bit. And so getting crystal clear about your intention and stating it to the other will overcome 80% of the reluctance in a group or an audience right there and then. Number 2. Maybe this will come as a surprise to you, but even though I absolutely love my job, there are many, many times where I've been hired by somebody, a leader within an organization, a director, a superintendent, to come in to work with a group of people that did not hire me, right? That they do not actually want to be there necessarily. So this is like, I'm really used to having a group come in arms crossed and creating the process and the experience that allows them to uncross their arms and lean in. In fact, I used to work with a group called the World in Conversation, and I would say 80+% of people would come in arms crossed, didn't want to be there, mandated to go have this dialogue with me or have this session. And yet 95% of people would leave leaning in, wanting a little bit more, and actually sticking around and hanging around at the end. And one of the ways that I create that shift in people is to frame learning as an experiment. Or frame whatever exercise, whatever thing you're doing as an experiment, right? So I might start off keynote and say, what questions do we typically ask? And I'd hear from the group, where are you? Where are you? That would be an interesting question. Where are you from? What do you do? How was the weekend, right? We kind of run out pretty quickly. And so the next thing I would say is, okay, that is business as usual, life as it normally is. What if we mix that up? Our intention the rest of our time together is to create a little petri dish, an experiment to see what happens when we ask each other questions that we don't typically ask, under this mindset that everybody we'll ever meet knows something that we don't. Reluctant somebody is sitting there listening in the audience, arms crossed. They don't know that I'm about to hand 800 people a We Connect card and we're gonna do this giant question swap exercise, which might give some introverts like a little bit of a nervous feeling of like, oh my goodness, I thought I was just gonna sit here and passively consume. But as I'm framing this learning as an experiment, it contracts the time and allows people to know we're only going to be doing this for a defined period of time. You can go back to your life as it was right after that, and everyone's going to survive. When you turn people into scientists of an experiment, all of a sudden a lot of that reluctance goes away because now they have a bit of a job, they're seeking to learn something, they're the owner, they're the principal in their experience, rather than some guy or some gal or somebody on stage pushing, forcing, manipulating them to do something that they don't necessarily want to do. Number 3, start with smaller groups. Another way this could be said is scaffold your learning, scaffold your participation. Of course someone's going to be reluctant if you invite them into a space and then you say, hey, there's a bridge outside, get your bathing suits on, we're all going to go jump off of it. That's like, woo, way over the line or threshold of expectation that they came in with. And so starting in small groups is a really, really great way to ease into interaction, right? So in a group of 50, does not create psychological safety for me to ask people to call out or go around a room and introduce themselves. And that's the most common way that we connect or begin something, as we go around one by one and introduce. That's public speaking, right? So like the number one fear above or right below death. So if you want to reduce reluctance, start in smaller groups, even pairs. Oftentimes I'll start in pairs. I might have those pairs, I call this the mitosis method. I might have those pairs combine into a group of 4, maybe have that group of 4 combine into a group of 8 to come to consensus on something, right? Ease into those larger groups, or at least have small group conversations. If you're doing a Q&A, I'm not gonna just invite people to shout out a question. I'm gonna say, turn to your neighbor, just share a question that you're naturally curious about or something you'd love to dive deeper into or that you're still thinking about or that you're wrestling with. And then I'm gonna invite them to popcorn that out into the large group, right? You see it, just a quick little scaffold, super easy, tends to reduce some reluctance because it's rare, it's not impossible, but it's rare that 4 reluctant curmudgeons will get all in the same group together. And so peer pressure will usually raise the level of expectation and create a more positive experience for everyone. That same mentor and friend Jeff that I mentioned earlier used to say that laughter is nervousness leaving the body. And I think small groups broken up from a large group is tension leaving the group. It's reluctance leaving the group. The final tip I have for you, I learned, I don't know if it's a hard way, the easy way, the real way, at a team and leadership development center that I used to work at that was embedded within Penn State University. And so groups would come out for half day or whole day team building or team development programs. We would design a flow, an experiential learning flow for the group to engage, solve problems together, connect, etc. And naturally, in every single group, there's somebody who's reluctant for whatever reason, right? It could be something going on in their life, or they hate this kind of stuff, or whatever else. At this particular time, it was a younger group, high school-ish, which was atypical. Typically, I was working with adults. High school group came out, and there was this kid that was just way on the outskirts. Like everything we're doing, even following the previous 3 tips in framing learning as an experiment, starting small groups, making intention really clear, he was still just way on the outskirts. So I went in, checked in, and didn't get much, to be honest. It wasn't like some big success where I went and talked to him and he was like, oh, I'm having this bad day. No, he was just like on the outskirts and feeling that. I let another 10, 15 minutes go by, still really on the outskirts, not engaging. And I remembered this idea, facilitator in Facilitator 101, which is give people challenge by choice. I like to frame that as pick your poison. So, hey group, I've designed an experience for you, but I would love for you to choose at the level of comfort with which you engage. Because some people, right, I've had some people in groups that would be scared to death to call and order a pizza. And then I've had other groups who, before anything even starts, they're like yelling to the group, going absolutely crazy. And so people are on a spectrum of their comfort, particularly with social interaction. And so creating this challenge by choice, my third ditch effort, I went up to this kid and said, hey, I'm recognizing I don't know exactly what's drawing you out, and I'm actually not gonna pry right now because I don't know you well enough to do that. But I do wanna just remind and frame that you have a choice at the level of challenge with which you engage. And so if we're doing something that's like, I'm not feeling this, I don't like this, or this is too uncomfortable for me, I would love for you to take the role of observer. So sit on the outskirts and pay attention and notice what's happening, maybe even take a couple notes. And then when we come back together as a group, I may lean on you or ask you some questions to share back what you noticed from the group. So I've given them an alternative choice to participate. Now, because of that experience, now I frame challenge by choice to the whole group right at the beginning. And sometimes I'll give them very concrete, like here's how you can participate if this is too much. But oftentimes I'll just frame the philosophy of challenge by choice and say, choose to engage or share, etc., at a level of your own comfort. By popular demand, I'm gonna be hosting the first ever We and Me remote retreat. And so if you would love to overcome audience reluctance, get some more tools, get together with other really smart leaders and educators, surround yourself with some brilliant people, reach out, drop a line below, and assuming the first ever We and Me retreat goes really, really well, there'll probably be others, so even if you're watching this video in a year from now, feel free to reach out and see if you can jump into the next one that happens. I'm Chad Littlefield. Have an awesome day.